The story of David and Goliath is one of the most powerful and inspiring tales from the Bible. Found in 1 Samuel 17, it tells how a young shepherd with nothing but a sling and stones defeated a giant warrior who terrorized an entire army. This story has stood the test of time, not just because of its incredible outcome, but because of the lessons it teaches about courage, faith, and using what you have to overcome the impossible. It begins in the valley of Elah, a broad, open area in ancient Israel, where two armies gathered for a critical battle. On one side were the Israelites, led by King Saul. On the other were the Philistines, a fierce enemy known for their advanced weapons and war tactics. For weeks, the two armies faced each other, neither willing to make the first move. In those times, battles were often decided by a champion's duel, where each side sent out their strongest warrior to fight. This was supposed to avoid massive bloodshed, but it could also decide the fate of entire nations. From the Philistine camp came Goliath of Gath. He wasn't just a champion, he was a giant. Standing over 9 feet tall, he was covered in bronze armor from head to toe. His armor alone weighed more than most men, and he carried a massive spear with an iron tip that weighed about 15 pounds. To the Israelites, he looked invincible. For 40 days, Goliath marched out into the valley, shouting insults at the Israelites and their God. He dared any man to face him in single combat, and every time he did, the Israelite soldiers shrank back in fear. Enter David. He wasn't even a soldier, just a young shepherd boy, probably in his early teens. David's older brothers were part of Saul's army, and his father Jesse sent David to the battlefield to deliver food to them. While there, David overheard Goliath's taunts and saw the fear in the Israelite camp. He was shocked. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David asked. To him, it wasn't just an insult to Israel, it was an insult to God himself. David's boldness caught the attention of others, and soon he was brought before King Saul. Saul, desperate for a solution, listened as David offered to fight Goliath himself. At first, Saul tried to dismiss David, pointing out his youth and inexperience. But David explained that he wasn't as helpless as he looked. As a shepherd, he had fought off lions and bears to protect his sheep, and he believed God had prepared him for this moment. Saul, with no better options, reluctantly agreed. Saul offered David his own armor and sword, but the young shepherd declined. The armor was too heavy and the sword unfamiliar. Instead, David chose the tools he knew best: his sling, a staff, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. The sling was not a toy. It was a serious weapon. In the hands of a skilled user, a sling could hurl a stone with deadly speed and accuracy, almost like a bullet. David walked into the valley to face Goliath, a stark contrast to the towering warrior in front of him. Goliath was furious when he saw David mocking him for being a mere boy. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he roared. But David didn't back down. Instead, he declared his faith with boldness. "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. The whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." David's confidence wasn't arrogance, it was faith. He believed wholeheartedly that God would give him victory, and he stepped forward without hesitation. Imagine the scene: a young boy with no armor and no sword, facing a fully armed giant in a tense, deathly silent battlefield. Every soldier watching from both sides must have held their breath, convinced they were about to witness a slaughter. But David acted swiftly. As Goliath moved closer, David reached into his bag, pulled out a stone, and placed it in his sling. He began to swing it with practiced skill. The sling made a whirring sound as it spun faster and faster, and then, with pinpoint precision, David released the stone. It flew through the air and struck Goliath directly in the forehead. The impact was so powerful that the stone sank into Goliath's skull, and the mighty warrior fell face first to the ground. For a moment, there must have been stunned silence. The unthinkable had happened. David, the young shepherd, had brought down the Philistine giant with a single stone. But David wasn't finished. He ran to Goliath, grabbed the giant's own sword, and used it to cut off his head, ensuring the victory was complete. When the Philistine army saw their champion defeated, they panicked and fled. The Israelites, emboldened by David's courage, chased them down and won a decisive victory. This story is more than just an account of an underdog winning against the odds. It's rich with lessons that still resonate today, especially for men facing challenges that seem insurmountable. One of the first lessons is about courage. David didn't let fear stop him, even when everyone around him was paralyzed by it. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting in spite of it. David knew the risks, but he also knew that standing up for what was right was more important than playing it safe. Faith is another central theme. David's confidence wasn't in his own strength or skill, but in God. He believed that God had prepared him for this moment, and that the same God who helped him defeat lions and bears would help him defeat Goliath. For men today, this is a reminder that faith can give us the strength to face challenges that seem beyond our abilities. Another powerful lesson is the importance of using what you have. David didn't try to fight Goliath on the giant's terms. He didn't wear heavy armor or wield a sword. Instead, he relied on the tools he knew, a sling and stones, and used them with precision. This teaches us that we don't need to have what others have to succeed. What matters is recognizing and maximizing our unique strengths. The story also shows the value of speaking boldly. David didn't hide his intentions or shy away from declaring his faith. His words weren't just for Goliath, they were for everyone watching. By declaring his trust in God, David inspired the Israelites and made it clear that his actions were about more than just personal victory. In today's world, the giants we face may not be literal, but they are just as intimidating. Whether it's fear, doubt, financial struggles, or personal failures, the story of David and Goliath reminds us that no challenge is too great when faced with courage, faith, and determination. This story is so universal that it has become a cultural archetype. We see David versus Goliath scenarios in sports, business, and even politics. Any situation where a smaller, less powerful figure triumphs over a seemingly unbeatable opponent. The reason this archetype resonates so deeply is that it taps into our hope that with the right mindset and effort, we too can overcome the impossible. David went on to become one of the greatest kings of Israel, but his victory over Goliath was a defining moment, one that shaped his destiny and inspired a nation. It wasn't just about the giant he defeated. It was about the faith and courage he displayed in doing so. For anyone facing their own giants, David's story is a powerful reminder that even the smallest among us can achieve great things with faith, courage, and the willingness to step into the valley.